The Phillies take on the Nationals, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Philadelphia's minus 175, totals 8, juice to the over. The Nationals are plus $1.50 for some money line cash. And if you like them on the run line, they're minus $1.10, catching the 1.5. Patrick Corbin for Washington, Zach Wheeler for Philadelphia. And following a pretty lackluster Monday on my Patreon website, we did still manage to improve to 4-0 in our last 4 extra daily pick tier package plays on that Patreon page. And if you want to access today's extra daily pick on that Patreon site, it's only going to cost you just $2.99. We're also 6-1 in our last 7 Major League Baseball tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. We currently have over 725 members who are signed up and active on that site. And if you want to see which one of these YouTube picks I'm actually betting on personally, the link for that page is in the description section below. That's patreon.com/BrockPage. And despite some incredible numbers out of Zach Wheeler this year, the Phillies have lost 2 out of Wheeler's last 4 starts, including a 3-1 loss to this very Nationals team. As a matter of fact, the Phillies lost their last 3 straight with Washington when Wheeler threw out the first pitch. Now, Phillies won just 22 out of 54 away from their home field. Their lineup's in the bottom 10 in strikeouts at the plate. Now, they're taking on a Washington club who still has a winning home record despite their struggles. They also have a winning home record against the NL East as well. They're in the top 10 in hits on average per game, top 5 in fewest strikeouts at the plate. Juan Soto's batting .299 with 18 homers and 58 ribbies. The outfielder's also in the top 15 in the league in both batting average and OPS. Meanwhile, Josh Bell's hit 17 home runs and knocked in 55. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, the Nats are currently in the top 10 in fewest walks allowed at home. Patrick Corbin's got himself 6 wins on the year, along with 82 strikeouts. Now, total-wise, 3 out of Washington's last 4 home games got over the line. Meanwhile, the Phillies are 29-25 to the over when they travel. I'm going to lean toward the Washington Nationals plus 1.5 and the over 8 runs. Next game, Orioles versus the Yankees, 7:05 East. The New York Yankees are minus 340, totals 9. Cortez possible for New York. Wells likely for Baltimore. And speaking of the O's, they've won 7 out of their last 10 ball games. And that includes a 7-1 victory over New York just last night. Baltimore's also cashed in on the run line in 3 out of their last 5 road games as well. Baltimore's actually got a winning record against the number when they play divisional opponents on the road. Now they're taking on a Yankees club who's won only 42% of their divisional games themselves. As a matter of fact, New York has gotten the W in only 8 out of 23 home games against the AL East. This Yankee lineup is in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 5 in home hits. And when it comes to the number in this one, New York went 90% to the under in their last 10 ball games. Baltimore saw their last 5 straight on the road stay under the line. I'm going to lean toward the Baltimore Orioles plus 1.5 and the under 9 runs. Next matchup, Indians versus the Blue Jays, 7:07 Eastern first pitch. The Toronto Blue Jays are minus $2, totals 8.5. Hyun-Jin Ryu for Toronto, Zach Plesac for Cleveland. Now, Plesac comes into today's game with a .426 ERA. The Indians have lost 6 out of their last 10. And they also have a losing record away from home. This Indians lineup is in the bottom 3 in walks on average per game, bottom 5 in hits. They're taking on a Toronto club who won 4 out of their last 5 themselves, first in the league in home scoring. Vlad Guerrero's leading the league in RBI and OPS. The Sluggers knocked in 85 runners and has an OPS of 1.082. Now, Vladdy's also batting .328 with 34 total home runs. And of course, Bo Bichette, he's also knocked in 71 runners on the year himself, 39 extra base hits for the shortstop. And no real surprise here, the Blue Jays are also leading the majors in home hits. Now, guys, just on a real kind of quick side note here, the Jays finally moved back into their original home in Toronto, as all their home games beforehand were played at a minor league park in upstate New York called Solon Field. But anyway, just figured I'd give you a heads up on that. A little bit different dimensions in the ballpark, completely different ballpark they're playing in as the home team. But I'll tell you this much: regardless of where they play, they've got a real good one in Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's on the bump here today. 10-5 record with a 3.26 ERA. The lefty struck out 94 batters and has a 1.14 WHIP. Now, total-wise, Toronto's 27-21 to the over as the home team. Cleveland's 30-24 to the over when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Toronto Blue Jays -1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. Next game, Rays Mariners, 7:10 p.m. East. The Tampa Bay Rays are -160. Totals 8 juice to the over. Luis Patino for Tampa Bay. Yusei Kikuchi for Seattle. Now, Kikuchi's just 6-6 on the year, along with a 4.01 ERA. The Mariners have dropped 4 out of their last 6, and they also have a losing road record. The Seattle pitching staff allows more hits on the road per contest than any other team in the majors. Meanwhile, offensively, this Mariner lineup is dead last in hits on average per game. Their opponents are holding them to just 7.1 hits per contest. Seattle's taking on a first-place Rays club who's won 4 out of their last 5 ball games. And that includes a 3-game sweep of the previously first-place Red Sox. Tampa's 34-21 straight up at the Trop. And they're also in the top 5 in scoring. Brandon Lowe's hit 23 homers and knocked in 55. Meanwhile, Austin Meadows is 5th in the majors in RBI. The Sluggers knocked in 76 on the year. But it's not just all offense in Tampa Bay this year. The Rays pitching staff is holding their opponents to just 3.2 runs a game on their home field. Luis Patino comes into today's start with a 1.17 WHIP, and he also averages over a strikeout an inning. The Rays are in the top 3 in fewest hits allowed per game at home. They're also walking just 2.7 batters a game. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, 4 out of Tampa's last 7 at Tropicana Field got over the number. Meanwhile, Seattle's gone 7-3 to the over in their last 10 themselves, 3-1 to the over in their last 4 on the road. I'm going to lean toward the Tampa Bay Rays -160 and the over 8 runs. Next matchup, Twins versus the Reds, 7:10 Eastern Standard Time. The Cincinnati Reds are -135, totals 9. Tyler Mahle for Cincinnati, Kenta Maeda for Minnesota. Now, Maeda's got just 4 wins on the year, 4.40 ERA and a 1.30 WHIP. The last place Twins are currently 18 games under 500. They've also dropped 7 out of their last 10 ball games. Minnesota's in the bottom 3 in runs allowed, bottom 3 in hits allowed. They're taking on a Cincy club who pounds the baseball at home. Joey Votto's hit 21 home runs, and he's in the top 15 in the majors with a .927 OPS. Meanwhile, Jesse Winker, he also hit 21 home runs himself, along with 59 ribbies. This Reds lineup is in the top 3 in the league in home scoring. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, Cincy's fanning nearly 11 batters a game at the Great American Ballpark. Tyler Mahle's 8-3 with a 3.71 ERA and a 1.23 WHIP. The righties also fanned 133 batters in just over 111 innings. Total-wise, the Reds went 80% to the over in their last 10. Cincinnati's officially 30-22 to the over on their home field. Meanwhile, the Twins are 35-17 to the over when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Cincinnati Reds -135 in the over 9 runs. Next matchup, Mets Marlins, 7:10 Eastern start time. The New York Mets are -175, total 7.5. Taiwan Walker for the Mets. Garrett possible for the Marlins. Now, the Marlins do have a winning record at home against the NL East. As a matter of fact, Miami successfully cashed in on the run line in nearly 60% of their divisional games. Miami's in the top 5 in fewest hits allowed at home. They're also holding their opponents to just 3.4 runs a game at Lone Depot Park. They're taking on a Mets club who's nearly dead last in the league in scoring on average per contest. New York scoring only 3.8 runs a game, and they're in the bottom 5 in hits on average per contest. The Mets have also lost 5 out of their last 7. They find themselves winning just 38% of their divisional road games. And as good as Taijuan Walker's numbers have been, the Mets have taken the loss in their last 2 contests where Walker made the start. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, New York's 12-9 to the over in their road games against the NL East. They're officially 31-21 to the over in all of their road contests as well. I'm going to lean toward the underdog Miami Marlins plus 1.5 and the over 7.5 runs. Next matchup, Red Sox, Tigers, 7:10 p.m. East. The Bo Sox are minus 145, totals 10, juice to the over. Garrett Richards for Boston, Willie Peralta for Detroit. Now, Peralta's got a 3.64 ERA and a 1.12 whip. The Tigers have won 4 out of their last 6 ball games, and they've got themselves a winning record at Comerica Park. This Detroit pitching staff is in the upper half of the league in fewest runs allowed per contest at home. They're taking on a struggling Boston club who lost their last 4 straight, and they also dropped 6 out of their last 9. Now, the Sox also failed to cash in on the run line in 7 out of their last 10 ball games as well. Their pitching staff is in the bottom 5 in hits allowed per game. Now, Garrett Richards, he's on the hill here today. He's just 6-6 on the season with a 5.15 ERA and a 1.66 whip. When it comes to the number in this one, the Bo Sox went 70% to the under in their last 10 outings, 25-20 to the under against American League opponents on the road. Meanwhile, the Tigers saw their last 4 straight at Comerica Park stay under the line. Detroit's officially 34-20 to the under for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the Detroit Tigers plus 1.5 in the under 10 runs. Next ball game, Angels, Rangers, 8:05 Eastern first pitch. The LA Angels are minus 150, numbers 8.5. Jose Suarez for the Angels, Jordan Lyles for Texas. Now, Lyles has 5 wins thus far in the season, along with 90 strikeouts. The Rangers are also on a 3-game winning streak with victories over the likes of Seattle and this very Angels club. Despite their last place position in the AL West, the Rangers are actually winning 60% of their home games against divisional opponents. This Rangers pitching staff is in the top 10 in fewest home walks per game. They're allowing only 2.8 walks per 9 at Globe Life Field. Now, they're taking on an Angels club who's really struggled in divisional play this year. LA's won only 8 out of 26 divisional road games. And they also took the loss in 4 out of their last 5 most recent ball games as well. This Los Angeles pitching staff is in the bottom 5 in runs allowed. They also find themselves walking nearly 4 batters a game. Despite some pretty decent numbers out of Jose Suarez this year, just keep in mind that the lefty's only had just 44 1/3 innings of work under his belt. Now, scoring-wise, the Angels saw their last 3 straight road games all stay under the number. And, of course, in addition to that, they're also 60% to the under in their last 10 outings at any location. Meanwhile, the Rangers are 31-22 to the under at Globe Life Field. I'm going to lean toward the Texas Rangers plus 1.5 and the under 8.5. Next matchup, Royals versus the White Sox, 8:10 p.m. East. The Chicago White Sox are minus 250, numbers 9. Dylan Cease for Chicago, Chris Bubich for Kansas City. Now, Bubich is just 3-4 in the year, 4.58 ERA, and a 1.46 whip. The Royals are on a 3-game losing streak, and they've gotten the W in only 17 out of 51 road games. This Kansas City lineup scores only 3.4 runs a game when they travel. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, they're walking over 4.5 batters a game away from home. Kansas City's taking on a first-place Chicago club who's 18 games over 500. And they also play their best baseball at Guaranteed Rate Field. The White Sox are 37-17 straight up on their home field. And that's good for a win percentage of .685 in that category. They're also winning 63% of their divisional contests as well. Jose Abreu's hit 18 homers and knocked in 78. The first baseman is actually fourth in the majors in RBI. Meanwhile, Timmy Anderson's batting .296 with 162 total bases. Anderson is in the top 20 in batting average as well. Now, when it comes to the pitching in this one, Dylan Cease, he's been a strikeout machine. He's fanned 138 batters in just over 108 innings. The righties also got 7 wins thus far in the year. Now, total-wise, Chicago went 8-2 to the under in their last 10 ball games, 31-23 to the under at Guaranteed Rate Field. Meanwhile, the Royals are 31-20 to the under when they bat first. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago White Sox -1.5 and the under 9 runs. Next matchup, Pirates-Brewers, 8:10 Eastern Standard Time. Milwaukee's -230, totals 9. Adrian Hauser for Milwaukee, Max Kranick for Pittsburgh. Now, Kranick's got a .731 ERA and a 1.63 whip. The last place Pirates have the second fewest wins in the National League. They're currently 26 games below 500 and score the fewest runs out of any other team in baseball. The Pirates are also scoring just 3.3 runs a game when they travel. They're taking on a first-place Minnesota club who's 21 games over 500, and they win 65% of their divisional games. This Milwaukee pitching staff allows the fewest runs per game out of any other team in Major League Baseball. They're also leading the majors in strikeouts per 9. The Brewers are fanning 10.6 batters a game on their home field. Adrian Hauser is 7-5 on the year with 76 strikeouts and a .369 ERA. Milwaukee holds their opponents to only 6.9 hits a game. Now, total-wise, Milwaukee's last 4 home games all stayed under the line, 16-7 to the under in their divisional games at home as well. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh's 13-9 to the under against the NL Central on the road. I'm going to lean toward the Milwaukee Brewers -1.5 and the under 9 runs. Next contest, Braves, Cards, 8:15 East. The Atlanta Braves are -130, numbers 8.5. Max Fried for Atlanta, John Lester for St. Louis. Good to see Lester back in the NL Central. The Cardinals have won 4 out of their last 6 contests, 4 months straight up in their last 5 at Busch Stadium. St. Louis is currently 30-21 straight up as the home team. And their pitching staff allows only 3.9 runs a game at Busch Stadium. The Cards are also limiting their opponents to only 7.4 hits a game on their home field as well. They're taking on a Braves club who's a couple games under 500 still. And they also have a losing record on the road. This Atlanta lineup strikes out nearly 10 times a game. And they're also in the bottom 10 in road hits. Max Fried has lost 7 games already. And he has an ERA of .432. The lefty's also got himself a 1.34 whip. Now, total-wise, Atlanta went 60% to the under in their last 10 outings. They're also 30-22 to the under when they travel. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are 31-22 the under as the home team. I'm going to lean toward the St. Louis Cardinals plus $1.10 and the under 8.5. Next ball game, Cubs, Rockies, 8:40 East. The Colorado Rockies are -140, totals 11.5. Kyle Freeland for Colorado, Zach Davies for Chicago. Now, Davies has 6 wins thus far in this season, 78 strikeouts as well. As bad as Chicago's been recently, they're still covering the number in 62% of their road games. The Chicago pitching staff is in the upper half of the league and striking batters out on the road. They're taking on a Colorado club who's 16 games under 500, and they took the loss in 6 out of their last 9. This Colorado pitching staff is last in the majors in home strikeouts. They're also in the bottom 10 in runs allowed at home as well. Kyle Freeland's just 1-6 on the year with a .452 ERA. The lefty's also got himself a 1.48 whip. Now, total-wise, 7 out of Colorado's last 10 outings got over the line. Meanwhile, the Cubbies went 70% to the over in their last 10 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Chicago Cubs plus 1.5 and the over 11.5 runs. Next ball game, Padres Athletics, 9:40 p.m. Eastern start time. The Oakland A's are minus 175, numbers 8. Sean Manaea for Oakland, Blake Snell for San Diego. Now, Snell's got himself 105 strikeouts through just over 84 innings. And even though he's struggled a fairly good amount this year, he suffered only 4 losses throughout the entire season. The Pods have also been dominant in their interleague contests. They're 5-1 straight up in their last 6 interleague games on the road. They're also 9-2 in their last 11 against the American League at any location. The San Diego pitching staff allows only 3.9 runs a game. Meanwhile, offensively, the Pods are in the top 10 in hits per contest, top 5 in road scoring as well. Manny Machado's in the top 10 in the league in RBI. The third baseman's knocked in 75 runners along with 20 home runs. Meanwhile, Jake Cronenworth hit 15 homers and has a batting average of .279. Now they're taking on an Oakland club who lost 5 out of their last 9 despite their recent success. This A's lineup is also in the bottom 3 in home hits. They're being held to a measly 6.9 hits a game at the Coliseum. Despite some really good stuff out of Sean Manaea this year, the lefty still suffered 6 losses thus far in the year. The A's have picked up the loss in 4 out of their last 7 games, where Sean threw out the first pitch. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, 6 out of San Diego's last 10 outings got over the line. 9-2 to the over in their last 11 interleague games. I'm going to lean toward the San Diego Padres plus 1.5 and the over 8 runs. Next matchup, Giants versus the D-backs, 9:40 Eastern first pitch. San Francisco Giants are minus 185, totals 9.5. Johnny Cueto for San Francisco, Madison Bumgarner for Arizona. The Mad Bums just 5-6 on the season, along with a .487 ERA. The D-backs are still the worst team in baseball. They find themselves 41 games below 500. Arizona gives up more runs than any other team in the majors. They're also allowing more hits than any other team in the majors as well. They're taking on a first-place Giants club who's 28 games over 500, and they win 62% of their divisional road games. The San Francisco pitching staff leads the league in fewest walks per game. They're also holding their opponents to just 3.5 runs a game when they travel. Johnny Cueto is 7-5 on the season with a .384 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP. The righties also struck out 82. The Giants have cashed in on the run line in nearly 70% of their road games. When it comes to the number in this one, San Francisco went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings. Meanwhile, the D-backs saw their last 5 straight at Chase Field all get over the number. I'm going to lean toward the San Francisco Giants plus 1.5 and the over 9.5 runs. Of that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup here. It is going to be Astros versus the Dodgers, 10:10 p.m. Eastern start time. The LA Dodgers are minus 175, numbers 8.5. Walker Buehler for Los Angeles, Lance McCullers for Houston. Now, McCullers is 8-2 on the season, .323 ERA and a 1.22 WHIP. The righties also struck out 115 batters in just over 97 innings. The first place Astros are 22 games over 500. They currently lead the majors in scoring. Jose Altuve's hit 25 homers and knocked in 65. The little man's currently 7th in the majors in home runs. Meanwhile, Michael Brantley leads the league in batting average. The outfielder is hitting .331 along with 157 total bases. And of course, needless to say, this Houston lineup is also leading the majors in hits on average per game. They're taking on a Dodger club who dropped 2 out of their last 4 at home. Now, Los Angeles also failed to cash in on the run line in 7 out of their last 10 outings. They're 0-4 against the number in their last 4 at Dodger Stadium. This Dodger lineup is in the bottom half of the league in home hits on average per game. They're also fanning nearly 9 times a game on their home field. Now, scoring-wise, LA went 60% to the over in their last 10 outings. Meanwhile, the Dodgers saw 5 out of their last 6 road games get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Houston Astros plus 1.5. And the over 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my Patreon website. I like Washington plus 1.5 over 8 runs. Baltimore plus 1.5 under 9. Toronto minus 1.5 over 8.5. Tampa Bay minus 160 over 8 runs. Cincinnati minus 135 over 9. Miami plus 1.5 over 7.5. Detroit plus 1.5 under 10 runs. Texas plus 1.5 under 8.5. Chicago White Sox minus 1.5 under 9 runs. Milwaukee minus 1.5 under 9. St. Louis plus $1.10 under 8.5. Chicago Cubs plus 1.5 over 11.5 runs. San Diego plus 1.5 over 8 runs. San Francisco minus 1.5 over 9.5. Before I give you my next and final free pick for the video, one final reminder that we are a perfect 4-0 in our last 4 extra daily pick tier package plays on my Patreon website. We're also 6-1 in our last 7 Major League Baseball tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. I'm going to lean toward the Houston Astros plus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, now it's time for our shout out of the day. And that goes to Devin Hunt, who says, "Thank you, Brock. We appreciate you a lot." And I'll tell you what, Devin, I appreciate you. And I appreciate all you guys who tune in each and every day. I love producing the content for you. And I certainly love to hear from you guys in the comment section below. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. Now, if you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my Patreon website, just keep in mind, Patreon's going to bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of August. I always tell folks the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. With that said, guys, happy Tuesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.